Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final call for seating. Our program is about to begin. This is your final call for seating. Please take your seats at this time. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our program to begin. Welcome to the Forum's Monday Policy Assembly and Awards session. At this time, please welcome to the stage, from McKinsey Global Institute, McKinsey's Business and Economics Research Arm, the partner that leads research on the economics of digitization and the economics of multinational corporations, Sri Ramaswamy.
Good afternoon. All right, I have a mic here and a mic here, which is a recipe for trouble. My name is Sri. We are about to kick off a panel that's going to talk broadly about some of the major structural changes that we see going on in the labor market, how the preferences of workers are changing, how the preferences of employers may be changing, what role technology is playing in all of this, and what it means for all of us kind of at the local ecosystem level. How do we respond to these sorts of changes? We're going to have a pretty diverse group of speakers, so lucky for you, it's not going to be just me. They come from different angles, so I'm really kind of excited about this panel. So I'm glad I got to host this. Thank you to Ron and to everybody else at NOB for hosting us here. Let me just bring them out one by one, and I want to say a little bit about their background as I do that. So let me first start with Andrew Dunkelman. Welcome, Andrew. Andrew is a principal at Google.org. For those of you who don't know, Google.org is basically Google's foundation. It focuses on education, on inclusion, economic opportunity, justice, and Andrew's specific remit, correct me if I get this wrong, is focusing on technology and digital skills for underserved populations, and kind of a broader mandate to think about technology for the social good. Is that fair? Works. All right. Thomas Lichtenberger is president and CEO of Festo Didactic, which has been around for 75 years, which is something I just learned. So Festo is a global manufacturer of automation and process control equipment. And Festo Didactic is their education technology arm. So they focus on technologies and solutions to help with educating the workforce. So think, learning labs, test beds, training programs, those sorts of things. Thomas has also written recently about the impact of new technologies, Industry 4.0, and we'll get into some of those discussions. And finally, Matt Singelman, who is the CEO of Burning Glass Technologies, which is a familiar name. Burning Glass runs one of the largest, if not the largest, repository of labor market data, the largest. We think so. All right. And so Burning Glass runs data and analytics on that in a real-time basis to try to understand labor market trends, and their customer base is pretty varied. So it includes workers who are trying to find career opportunities, employers who are trying to find job matches, and even educational institutions that are trying to figure out what sort of curricula to create. So that's our panel. We'll go for an hour or so. let me kick it off. Right. Can you guys welcome our panel, please? Okay, so we're going to make this more of a conversation than a panel discussion. So I think what we'll do is spend maybe a little bit of time talking about what we think are some of the challenges in the labor market. We could go on all day just talking about challenges, so I'm going to try to force us to spend maybe half, maybe even 2/3 of the time focusing on the solution space. We'll try to understand what is out there that's working, how do we scale some of these things up, how do we coordinate actions, because it'd be good to get into some of those sorts of discussions, which hopefully will be useful for you guys as well. Let me first start by asking each of you folks to offer some reaction to kind of this overall theme of the panel discussion, major structural changes in the labor market and how we should be thinking about them. And the one caveat I will give, Andrew, we'll start with you and then we can go down, is to focus a little bit also on the positives. What actually is working in the US labor market as we think about these structural changes? What are some of the strengths of the labor market as we think about these changes?
Well, thank you. I'll offer two. One that has both, I think, a positive and a negative, and then the other that I think actually both have flip sides. The first trend, I think, is around demographic changes. And here in the United States, we're about to see the share of the working age population decline relative to its historicals. And I think that presents some challenges, certainly, with regard to how do we maintain growth in this country. And that's one of the things that we get excited about as we see new technologies, especially artificial intelligence and machine learning, that it does present an opportunity to sustain growth. There's some new research out from Drone Acemoglu that shows that developed economies with an even more aging workforce relative to ours, like Japan, have been able to sustain growth through the introduction of new technologies. So I think that certainly, it's hard to have this conversation without acknowledging the demographic shifts in this country. The second one, which I think is largely a positive, but will probably amuse some of you, is the decentralization of our entire workforce system. As we did an RFP for new solutions last year, and we got about 350 nonprofits using technology to address some of the challenges with skilling, with job quality, with the social safety nets. It's really remarkable to see the diversity of homegrown solutions to all of these challenges. I would say about 150 were really city-based, county-based solutions, and everyone was a little bit different and tailored to local market needs. If you think back to how the US has gone through big shifts in the labor market before, like the high school movement, that was a movement that was born out of states. I believe it was Iowa and Nebraska who engendered the first high schools in this country, or really pushed that ahead. And so I think it gives me some optimism that we will find solutions from the ground up, and we're already seeing that through the work we're doing at Google. And I'm sure that in venues like this, you come together and share what's working in certain communities, what can be replicated and what can't, for good and for bad. So those are two that I think are worth putting on the table.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. I think we will come back to this point about this, this notion of the homegrown systems, the thousand flowers blooming sort of approach. That is something I would like to get into it as part of the panel discussion to figure out, how far we go down that road versus, is there a role for some, a more top-down or larger coordinated approach as well? Thomas, your thoughts, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it all starts with jobs. We have to be really clear what the jobs of the future are and in what direction they are going. From a global automation perspective, I'm totally convinced that all the jobs will be related to Industry 4.0. Some more, some less, but all will be somehow related to it. Industry 4.0, or Industrial Internet of Things, which is basically the same, they are changing how people, machines, data, processes are interacting based on modern technology. I was thinking about manufacturing. And when you think about the United States and we look backwards, this was something America really was good at. We were good at manufacturing. When we look into the future, what the US need to be good at, it's manufacturing. It will be just different compared to what it was 10, 20, or 50 years ago. And we have to adjust to it. And when you look into the United States, into the different pockets we have, you actually see some quite nice hotspots, some workforce innovation which is going on. And from this we have to learn, we can multiply it, and we can scale it up. Industry 4.0 will change the game. I'm totally convinced about this. And when it comes to global competitiveness, the United States has, from my perspective, the potential to be at the forefront of industrial automation. But we are not there yet. At the moment, other countries in Europe or in Asia are leading the game. They are leading the charge. So, and what we have to do is to do actually what we are doing today, to talk about it, how we can elevate workforce training to the next level to close the skills gap we are having and be prepared for the future.
Thanks. It's interesting you bring up manufacturing, because I think one of the things that we've seen in this country is the nation sort of speaks in two voices when it comes to manufacturing. There are some people who believe the decline is inevitable and we should be looking at other opportunities. There's others who believe the decline is not inevitable and something actually needs to be done to fix this. One of the things that we did at McKinsey is to look at the role that manufacturing plays in the economy. And to your point, there's no other sector that has the kind of wide geographic footprint that this sector has. And through its capital investment and productivity, the spillover benefits that it has, even if it doesn't employ the kinds of millions of workers that it used to in the past, the tens of millions of workers, it still has this outsized impact on the local ecosystems that honestly we haven't found a replacement for that. And so we might come back to that point as well. Matt, how about your thoughts?
So we all live in the shadow of the tremendous promise of transformation in the workforce system. I don't know whether it's promise or threat. We all hear about jobs that are going to go away. I think much more than that, what we're seeing is jobs changing in terms of how they're defined, in terms of the types of skills that are required to do those jobs. Thankfully, I think we've got, as we anticipate those changes, I think there are indeed a number of strengths that we have to build upon and some opportunities that we have to leverage those strengths to do yet better. So first of all, I would point to the fact that I think as I look at this room and people who are serving both employers and job seekers every day, one of the things that's most striking is the extent to which over the course of the last generation, we have transformed our work toward a broad acceptance and recognition of the fact that true solutions need to be demand-driven. They need to start with the fact that employers are customers at least as much as job seekers are, because ultimately, if we aren't aligning toward where the jobs are, then programs are not going to be successful. Ultimately, there has become a broad acceptance of the fact that solutions need to be market-driven and thought of as a market problem as opposed to a social problem. So I think that's a very important conceptual framework. Again, if you went back a generation as well, think about where the world of workforce development was maybe a generation ago, as it still is in many other countries. It is often thought of as a social problem and a social problem that you're trying to deal with, as opposed to how do we make sure that we can better match supply and demand. Part and parcel of that is the development that we have had in this country of a very strong culture of an infrastructure for ongoing training. We are not a country that expects that people will be the same thing over the course of their careers. There are a number of other countries that have much more verticalized career development, and there are some advantages to that. But we have a tremendous resource in America's community college system and workforce development system. Our workforce boards here today are doing heroic work in ensuring that people have a way of accruing new skills over time. So we think about a job market that is increasingly hybridizing, where new skills are blending into work. There's going to be an increasing demand on that infrastructure. I'm sure we'll talk a lot about that over the course of this discussion. The last piece which I think is a great strength that we have that we can build on today, is the orientation of America's education system and, frankly, of our workforce toward what I'll call human skills. Skills like empathy and creativity and the like. Those are not necessarily strengths in other countries. We think about things like America's liberal arts heritage for our college grads, whether it be even the kind of human skills that somebody in a retail career has the opportunity to develop. Those are tremendous strengths. They may not be adequate on their own, and I think increasingly they can only be a base, but they are incredibly important because in an automation-driven future, the things that are hardest to automate are those human skills. So the fact that we have an education system that emphasizes those human skills, creativity and creative thinking and critical thinking, that we have workforce experiences and a workforce orientation that emphasizes human interaction, I think are going to be great strengths. Things that I think continue to be missing, there are going to be challenges for us, notwithstanding those strengths that we need to address, is going to be the need for better information. We've talked already about some of the mismatches in the job market and the critical need to be able to have a more responsive job market, a more responsive workforce system. We need better information in order to do that.
Great. So this is a good launchpad. So let me pick up on something that, Matt, you just mentioned, and then Thomas, you as well. This idea of using the employer almost as a customer, right? And so when we think about skill demand, how are those skill demands changing? We talked about this notion of creativity or empathy or problem solving. In your experience, and Matt or Thomas, either one of you can start, and then we'll all jump in. How are employers communicating those needs to training institutions or to local governments or to anybody else? What does it mean to say, I want somebody who is creative or a problem solver? Is there a vocabulary that's emerging around this new skill demand?
When you look at today's production, it's so different to what most of us have in their mind, to what they know. It's not dirty, it's not oily, it's not greasy, it's clean. You can eat from the floor, it's highly automated, it's exciting. You just have to imagine what this mobile phone, the smartphone, all did to our world and our personal behavior, how it changed our life, and how it automated everything in our private life. And now imagine a similar degree of automation on the factory floor, where all the devices, the machines interact with each other without any additional involvement, how they predict themselves what will happen in the future. And this will become even more accelerated when we start talking about artificial intelligence, and I'm pretty sure you can talk about this later on. Mm-hmm. So all this creates a huge demand for different skills, for different careers which do not exist today. So, and therefore, it's incredibly important that employers start talking to the school system, because it's not only the responsibility of the educational system to educate students, to create the workforce of the future. It's also the responsibility of the industrial companies. And how can they do that? They can get involved. They have to get involved with the schools, the colleges, universities, or high schools to help them adjust to this new technology, to help educate the instructors to be able to teach this new technology. So in a nutshell, the involvement of industry, active involvement of industry into with the educational system is the key from my perspective.
I would certainly agree that there's a tremendous need for employers to engage more directly than they are today, and to send clearer signals about what's needed. And I think there's plenty of examples that we're all familiar with of employers who are indeed stepping up and looking to education and training partners as suppliers in the same way that they interact with and develop strong partnerships with any parts of their supply chain. So all of that is absolutely correct. The good news is that even before employers, even as employers are only just starting to systematize that communication, the signals are already there. Employers in their job postings actually turn out to be more efficient than we might think. And that is that efficiency about what they express of what they need, notwithstanding that any given posting is, might be fraught with some issues. That efficiency actually manifests as much with soft skills as it does with hard skills. Here's how I can tell you why. For one thing, if employers, all that stuff at the bottom, hey, we want people who are creative, who are good communicators, we're all just a bunch of stuff that they put, mush that they put on at the bottom of the job description, they don't really mean it. Or if it's just a bunch of common employability skills, as often people refer to it. You would expect those skills to be the same on every job posting. What we find instead is that employers are actually surprisingly consistent about what they need within any given kind of jobs, but there are actually very significant differences in the soft skills employers signal from job to job to job. And in fact, employers not only signal different soft skills for different kinds of jobs, but they express skill gaps around different soft skills for different kinds of jobs. So all of that says that what employers say matters. We can already listen to what they say. But I think one of the problems here, notwithstanding that we have an educational system that does emphasize those things more than perhaps in other places, one of the problems that await employers is that it is very hard to separate the training of soft skills from the training of hard skills. And as a result, we wind up with employers pointing at people and saying, hey, but they don't have the ability to think or write or whatever it is. And so it's sort of the paradox of the American education system. On one hand, we emphasize those things. On the other hand, employers perceive those gaps. And I think it's because they're separated from one another. If we look at a lot of technical training programs, those technical training programs are developed around technical skills distinct from the soft skills that are necessary to actuate those technical skills.
Maybe just to add one point on that. I think I'm newer to this space than I think a lot of folks in the room. And when I started to try to get smart on these issues, so many people told me, well, one of the core problems is employers aren't at the table. I heard that again and again and again. And then when I started to look at solutions, I found that to be manifestly untrue. I actually thought that across the education system, across workforce development, employers were at the table. That's not to let them off the hook, but I do think it indicates that perhaps the challenge is not about being at the table, but rather in a sort of effective translation of what needs are. And to Matt's point, I think machine learning and artificial intelligence, we need to consider how these new technologies will enable us to create many of the clearer signals. What machine learning does best, more than anything else, is find patterns and causations within data that the human eye can't see. And I'm really optimistic that as we layer on new types of data analytics through machine learning, through artificial intelligence, including, for example, the Google Cloud Jobs API, which looks at massive amounts of job descriptions and then folks in jobs and is able to see linkages that we might not be able to see with the naked eye. I think that enables you to pick up on some of these distinctions within soft skills that might have escaped us for a long time.
Are there any examples from other countries or other regions that have been trying experiments with this kind of this new vocabulary, this combination of soft and hard skills? Anything we can learn from what's been going on overseas?
I would add to this. First of all, I have to say what Matt said about soft skills is extremely important. And you have to combine this with the learning process itself. We are talking about new technology, new processes. That's a lot of stuff, And on top of that, it's changing all the time. When you hear me talking about Industry 4.0, this is not a technology. This is more a philosophy. So what Industry 4.0 is today is different next year. So it's more the skill set, how to deal with that. And then you are immediately on the soft skills side. how to deal with problems, how to address them, how to work in a team, how to manage your workload. You know, all those kind of things, they're incredibly important. And this is what we have to teach in combination with actually hands-on learning. It's, you know, the times of typical traditional classroom learning, they are over in my opinion. You know, the students, when they have to be prepared for what's happening out there in the real world, they have to be trained on real world equipment, on products and processes which are used in the factory, really. So moving the factory of the future into the classroom, having hands-on learning, combining this with the soft skilled approach, with teamwork, with how to approach topics. This is, from my perspective, a way how to address this topic.
I think this is a question of scale. Right? There are a lot of good experiments out there, basically, which are bringing together supply and demand more efficiently, that are fostering that communication between employers and job seekers, or between demand, supply, and the organs of supply. If we think about ourselves in this room as being the organs of supply to the market, as educators as being the organs of supply to the market. And so there's plenty of good experiments and endeavors that are happening both here in the US and certainly abroad as well. Most of them depend upon brokering very close relationships between sets of specific employers and specific training programs or specific educational institutions. You know, in Germany, for example, there's a centuries-old tradition of a Bund infrastructure of employers being able to get together and articulate what they need and the like. The real question is, how do you do that at scale? We don't have a Bund infrastructure. We have a very disaggregated and diffuse industry here. Getting everyone down to the table to set standards is a great dream, but not going to happen anytime soon. We aren't a small market like a Singapore, where you can kind of get much of the employer community around a specific industry together around a donut breakfast and get concurrence.
Even if you did, nobody would listen to you here anyway. So.
I'm sorry?
Even if you did, nobody would listen to you here.
Well, yes. So we like to think about, as we think about scaling this up, and how does this happen more broadly, we think about how you can create a better infrastructure for both aggregating the signals in the market and then for broadcasting them. Right? So engineers like to talk about what they call signal processing problems. Signals are getting sent, but they aren't necessarily getting received. The job market is, as we all know, we're out there serving thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of job seekers, thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of employers in trying to broker individual transactions. That's a hard slog, and it's critical work and makes a huge difference in people's lives. At the same time, as a signaling mechanism, that depends right now on individuals in this room being able to hear a specific, you know, I know this employer, they're looking for this, here's a set of people who just lost their jobs at this plant, and again, it's heroic. And I hear those stories like, wow, how did they know? Right? If you start to think instead about how do we create better antennae, how do you create a listening device, like, you know, those kind of hearing horns, those listening horns that used to characterize how you know, what we give to older people. Hey, how do we make sure that we can aggregate up all the different language that different people are using? And I think the point was made just a minute ago. Andrew said that we have this great opportunity to use AI to listen more closely. But we're not going to get everyone to speak the same language. You know, it was a great idea to have everybody start speaking in Esperanto. The world of work will not speak Esperanto. What we need to do is figure out how do we translate all the different signals, all the different ways that somebody is talking about the same job all the different words that mean the same thing and all the same words that mean different things. Right. How do we do a better job of understanding that, and then in turn making sure that individual job seekers, employers, and educators have the critical information they need to do better?
Yeah, and I think certainly, from our perspective, from the work that we've done with state and local economic development, there's always these two tensions that you're trying to resolve, right, at the local level. One is this notion of what has to be done at the local level versus what needs some kind of regional or national strategy, if not an outright policy, right? At least some kind of a coordination of, okay, are we all pointing in the same direction or not? That's one tension that always seems to exist. And then the other tension that exists is sort of the time dimension, right? I need to solve this problem right now for this employer or that group of unemployed people. How do I balance that with, oh my God, like 10 years from now, this is where we're going to be, and what investments do I need to make? Any thoughts on that? How do you balance that? Anything coming out from the innovation space, Andrew, that helps people kind of think through that? Either of those two balancing equations?
That's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, I think like with so many things, the answer is you have to do both and do it well, and that's tricky. I'm interested in how you create systems that are resilient both to sort of dynamic needs as well as can persist along long time scales. So for instance, one of the key challenges is how do you improve signaling about alternative credentials? Because alternative credentials can come and go, and they're actually relatively dynamic compared to, say, the formal credentialing process, accreditation process rather, of like a 4-year degree. Mm-hmm. And so is there a platform that you can build to enable better discovery of alternative credentialing? I think that's an age-old problem, and nobody's really cracked it really well. But that's the sort of questions that we're answering, and we're on the market for solutions there. So if folks have answers, I think it'd be a conversation I'd love to pick up on.
I think one thing which is important to bear in mind is that the job market is actually micro. We're used to thinking about, and you asked the question of both, is this where's the role for national strategy, where's the role for local action, and then how do we affect that action? I think one thing to bear in mind is that we're used to thinking about the job market as a job market. There is no single job market. There is, in fact, even the notion of a job market itself is a little bit of a misnomer. We know that the market is really much more driven by skills than it is by jobs. Individual skills in individual locations have very different supply-demand dynamics. There's no one skill gap. There are skill gaps for specific kinds of jobs and specific kinds of locations. So overall, I think the level of local action in states and local communities is a place where there's a much greater opportunity for action. And I think as we think about how to address then and how to take action within that framework, I often think about the old Willie Sutton rule. Right, Willie Sutton was a bank robber. We've all heard the story. He was being hauled off to prison after a long streak of bank robberies, and some reporter asked him, "Why did you rob those banks?" He said, "Because that's where the money is." So when I think about where I would focus that action, I would focus on where the pain points are. Again, we don't want to think about this as a social problem. We want to think of it as a market problem. Mm-hmm. If we can crack the demand side of this, we have an opportunity to really prove out to prove out how change can happen. If we say, where are the places that employers are failing to get what they need, where those signaling problems are most severe, and we address those pain points, we create alternative credentials that are aimed at those pain points. That's where we can have the greatest leverage.
Thomas, let me ask you something from the multinational perspective, right? And the reason I ask this is because in the research that we've done, we've sort of seen a different response from smaller and mid-size, locally oriented companies versus some of the larger firms. And one of the ways that the difference manifests itself is in the interaction with local economic development or local workforce board agencies where sometimes the multinational firms will come to us and say, you know what, we've got operations in 8 different states, 20 different counties, I have supply chains straddling boundaries, right? I don't want to be the person dealing with 10 different workforce initiatives. I want somebody to do this for me. Does that resonate with you or with some of the folks that you've worked with? Is there a solution to that when we also have this local kind of activism going on?
It's a difficult situation, and it's certainly difficult or different between a small corporation and a large corporation. And with many problems, it's about the balance. And it's about the short-term needs and the long-term needs. How do we address this? At the moment, we have short-term needs to solve problems which we are all aware of, especially the smaller companies. But we also know exactly in which direction it will go in the future, what technology will do, how the jobs will look like in the future, and we have to prepare for this right now, and we have to also help the companies from the educational side to be prepared for this. When it comes for this technology, and there's no doubt when you go out at the moment, they are not all there yet. They have to fight with their daily sales. They have not implemented all this technology. But if you ask them, they all agree, yes, this will come. This will be the future, how it will look like. And they are basically asking for help on their journey to this in this direction. And this is also a new role which the educational sector has to provide to help and educate and support especially these smaller companies on their way into the future.
Let me ask a little bit about this notion of mobility, right? So this is a country that used to pride itself on labor mobility, and mobility broadly defined, so not just the geographic mobility, but certainly part of it, but also mobility across industry boundaries, mobility across firm boundaries. There's a lot of economic literature that talks about the fact that mobility is what ultimately drives wage growth, because when workers move from one firm to another, they get a bump up in the incomes, and that's what drives mobility. That's what drives income growth for households. And our rate of mobility, at least the geographic mobility, has dropped in half in the last 20 years or so. There's some evidence that the mobility between firms and between industries has also dropped. And there's a bunch of kind of arguments about why that's happening. Is it because the workers are aging? Is it because there's something else going on? Is it dual income families? Is it a demand problem, not enough firms starting up? Any kind of thoughts on that as you think about from a workforce development standpoint? How do you solve the problem of mobility while you're solving for these near-term skill gaps and skill demand issues?
I can maybe kick it off and say, just speaking personally, I grew up in Houma, Louisiana, which is a town of about 35,000, and since the oil price crash in 2014 has lost 17,000 jobs in the county. It's a massive labor shock. And when I go there, I recently saw the census estimates that about 1,000 people have moved. So you see that there is less response to the labor shock than you might anticipate in terms of out-migration. And there are lots of demographic and economic reasons we can talk about why people aren't moving. The cost of housing in economically productive cities like San Francisco, I know it firsthand, is outrageous. Demographics mean that people aren't able to pick up and move in the same way that they used to. Financial security is down, and so people don't have the social safety net that they used to pick up and go to a new city. But I think at the end of the day, it's important to recognize and validate people's needs to be in the community where they are, around people they love, and sometimes economists, in my opinion, get this wrong by validating mobility and getting the heck out of Dodge over restoration and building up local communities and workforce systems. Mm-hmm. So, as I think about that challenge, there are a few things that you need to do. One is we need broadband access. Obviously, this is sort of a Google perspective, but certainly to increase economic development in communities that may be so-called left behind, I think you have to consider the role that broadband plays. Secondly, how do you increase the role of remote work, remote outsourcing to communities? There's a lot of work at Google that probably could be done in communities outside of San Francisco that are lower labor costs. And so I think a lot about that. And thirdly, how do you increase the growth of sort of homegrown solutions in education and healthcare, which is going to be where growth in these communities come from, to really drive the labor market forward. So I often get on my soapbox about this issue when I hear folks like our chief economist, Hal Varian, talk about mobility. And I think there's an important counterpoint to be made about it's not all about mobility.
I totally agree. I think we tend to, we tend to treat people as a commodity that can just sort of be shuffled across a playing board. And communities represent people's homes and their rootedness, and I'm not ready to look at a future for America that writes off our rural communities, which have been too often on the short end of opportunity. So here's sort of a way I think about this. We are living increasingly in a talent-scarce world. Now, yes, part of that's being driven by the fact that we're in a white-hot economy and all that kind of stuff. But even beyond that, when you look at the future of work, where new sets of skills are infusing one another and creating these kind of tinctures that are hard to find, we're finding sets of skills that don't tend to go together. In a talent-scarce world, demand follows supply. So the key to being able to ensure the viability of America's communities depends in no small part on our ability to increase the skill level of those communities, to ensure that people have a mechanism for identifying the skills that will make them more valuable, that people have a mechanism for not only identifying what those skills are, but for acquiring them. I mentioned a few minutes ago that the job market is driven by skills rather than jobs. Even within any given kind of job, there are certain sets of skills that will get you paid better, that will make you more competitive. That's true from the administrative assistant who can make about 25% more by acquiring Salesforce.com skills. It's true for the graphic designer who can make almost $20,000 and more a year by acquiring HTML5 skills. It's true of the production plant manager who likewise makes about 20% more by acquiring the ability to build a SQL database and be able to look at various kinds of production trends within his plant, right? So skills and learning are the unique opportunity that people have to arbitrage in themselves. What we need to do is to, first of all, make sure that we are giving people that map, that they can sort of see where those opportunities are to become more valuable and therefore more sought after where they are. And second, that we are restructuring our education and training infrastructure to enable people to acquire the skills within their field that will allow them to move up, or the specific sets of skills that will allow them to move between jobs without saying, hey, you need to go back to school and get a whole new degree.
So I think the thing that I struggle with is who pays for this, right? Particularly in the context of these sort of declining communities, or the communities that have seen a massive economic hit, right? Because the reality is also that we have massive tuition debt in this country. It hasn't been talked about as much as it was even a couple of years ago, but it's still there. And there's a lot of evidence, both anecdotally and through some of the statistics, that if you look at associate degree holders, somewhere between 20 to 30% of them earn less than the median high school graduate, right? 20 to 30% of four-year degree holders earn less than the median of the associate degree. Adjusting for the field of study, I mean, of course, if you're going to learn basket weaving, then that's your choice. Adjusted for the field of study and the cost of living in the location, who pays for these sorts of things, for this kind of a skill intervention, particularly if you want to do this at scale? What are some models that exist, particularly even from outside the US?
So I think there's certainly a lot of demand for employers to pay for more. I want to come back to that in a second, though. First, I think the biggest opportunity that we have from a financing perspective is to get a lot of the waste out of the system. When we say we're going to send somebody back to school to get a whole new degree in order to move from job to job, that's a very expensive endeavor. It's expensive both in terms of cost and in terms of opportunity cost. When we say that somebody needs to not just buy a single skill, but they need to buy a whole bundle of skills, whether that bundle is represented by a degree or not, that is a very inefficient form. When we see programs of study, whether they are degreed or non-degreed, that are not aligned to job market success, that is a significant inefficiency not only to the economy but to individual workers and to individual learners. So to the extent that we can create, I like to think about the analogy of Spotify and the kind of disruptive model that it introduced in the world of entertainment and music, right? You don't need to buy an album, you buy an individual track.
Right.
And,
So kind of the unbundling notion of
that's
technology,
right. I think that can make this whole process a lot more efficient and allow people to achieve ROI much faster. Now, there will still be a question of how does it get paid, even at a lower price point, but that certainly takes some of the challenge away.
I'm in the opinion that when it comes, everybody who want to go into the direction of manufacturing or something similar needs to be able to deal with the fundamentals. Everybody needs to know how to use a screwdriver, or to do the basic things. This is just important. Doesn't matter in what direction you go, and we need to give our young students the possibility to get this kind of knowledge in a very affordable way. And I see that some states are going in this direction. However, when you move forward, I think we see a different way to get educated in the future, which is a little bit further than what we're used to on the traditional way. The students will have the opportunity and need to have the opportunity to get exactly the skills they want, they need at the time they need it. So the time where you start at high school, you go to college, and you go to work, I think this will change in the future. There are different ways to acquire the skills through online offerings, through manufacturers. There will be different sources to gain this knowledge. A situation which we have to solve then is the quality insurance. How do the employers then actually know that this specific person has all the knowledge? This is something where we actually have to solve. But this is what we are faced with and where we have to find a solution for. And coming back to the topic of paying for education, it's also a differentiation. Is it before you work or while you are working? Because we have to be clear, education never ends. It has to be a lifelong learning. Even if you have a job, you have to continue to work. This will never end. Everything is evolving so fast. So, and therefore, in this situation, employers have to invest in their people as well. Because if they don't, it will be even more expensive. If they are not investing in their people, it will be more expensive because they lose people and they have to hire new people, they have to educate new people. So in the long run, investment in your own people as an employer is actually the cheapest way to go.
If I can offer one example, which will also allow me to make a shameless plug, Google in January launched in partnership with Coursera our new IT support certificate, which is designed to get folks from novice to career ready in IT support in 8 to 10 months. And I think it illustrates sort of this three-part solution. The first is, as Matt said, using technology to drive down the cost of delivery. Obviously, online learning is nothing new, but we're experimenting with new things around success coaching and the way that content is delivered to be able to deliver IT support training in a much lower cost fashion than maybe more traditional models. The second is employers putting their money where their mouth is. And so we've put more than $10 million into content creation and scholarship so that people can get access to this content. And then the third is about tapping into existing sources of funds. So once you bring the cost of training down, then you can use formula funding, you can use student aid in order to deliver that training at a much lower price point and without having to create sort of new entitlements. So I think those are three pathways forward. Lots more where that came from, and I'd be happy to discuss offline.
Well, so let me ask, so I know we have less than a minute, and apparently these are ejector seats, so I will make sure we wrap up. Last question to you folks. particularly in this notion of the different ways to be educated, sort of it's kind of a lifelong learning thing, getting costs out of the system. Who else needs to be at the table? So from a local workforce board perspective, we've talked about employers needing to be there. Who else do we need? I mean, obviously we need the community colleges. Do we need investors? Do we need the tech firms? Who else should folks be thinking about bringing to the table?
One thing what we really have to be clear of, it's not the task of one individual segment of the educational ecosystem we are having, the colleges. We have to look at high school, college, university. They have to work together as well. Since years, we have declining student enrollment on the college side. We have to work on the high school side to allow the young students to be exposed to how the real world really looks like. So we have to work high school on the college side together with the university and the employers. We have to bring all of them together at the table.
I think it's going to be critical as well to make sure that workers and learners are well represented in a workforce system of the future. And I said earlier that that one of our great strengths is that we are demand driven, that we recognize that ultimately we need to start with jobs and be able to help guide people toward those jobs. But I think it is important for us to bear in mind, and as everyone here does every day, that we need to make sure that we are doing, from the earliest ages, we're doing a better job of giving people themselves, of giving learners themselves, workers themselves, a GPS, if you will, that's giving them, keep it in the Google family, ways for their careers, right? How do you make sure that you not only can set that direction of where you're going, but we have one of the things that's one of the great innovations that Waze introduced was to develop a navigation that is adaptive, right? This is how the market is changing. This is how you need to be rerouted. It's great to have a conversation between educators on the one side, employers on the other side, but we're not a centrally planned economy. One of the most important things we can do is empower workers and learners to make better informed decisions so that they can be smarter actors in their own careers.
I think our work's cut out for us, so I think
so.
just leave it there.
I think so. All right, well, Andrew, Thomas, Matt, thank you very much for your comments. I hope you guys can stick around for a few minutes if there's any questions. But otherwise, thanks very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please thank our participants again for making this engaging panel session. At this point, the stage is being set for our special guest speaker and our awards ceremony, so don't go away. Ladies and gentlemen, to continue our program, please welcome back to the stage Ron Painter.
It's great. Welcome, good evening. This is one of the favorite parts for me, when we recognize the amazing work of the people that we work with and that are part of our system. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with a lot of them today to record Workforce Central, which is the official podcast of the National Association of Workforce Boards. Hope you tune in. We're on iTunes and Google Play. It's really a pleasure for me. We've been chatting backstage, so it's a pleasure for me to welcome a gentleman who came to Washington, D.C. as an intern, got hooked on this world of D.C., is a Georgetown University law graduate, worked on the Hill and the Senate Help Committee, worked then in the National Mediation Board, and is now the Chief of Staff for the U.S. Department of Labor, Nicholas Geale. Nicholas, welcome and thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that very, very warm welcome, and thank you, Ron, for that very kind introduction. I'm going to keep my remarks brief here tonight because I don't want to stand too far between you and cocktail hour. So it's really a pleasure to see so many people here today. The National Association of Workforce Boards is incredibly important to the United States Department of Labor. I'd like to welcome all 550 of the boards that are represented here by 1,291 of you who registered today. I'm not sure there are 1,291 in the auditorium right now, but anyway, welcome to all of you. You chose what is ordinarily a slightly warmer and always beautiful time of year to visit the District of Columbia. It's cherry blossom season. A time when our cherished blossoms wake up and signal that winter is finally over in the city. It hasn't quite happened yet since it was 32 degrees this morning, but we're close. I hope you get a chance to go out to the tidal basin, though, and to enjoy what is a beautiful part of the city and to see where the blossoms would be if it were warmer. But before you sneak out to do that, and not during scheduled panels like the great one I just had a chance to listen into, because you'll miss out on great information. For those of you who haven't met me or know what I'm doing at the department, I'm Chief of Staff. I'm also the Deputy Solicitor, which is the #2 legal official. So I've been at the department since February of 2017. I was initially the Deputy Solicitor, the Acting Solicitor, and the Chief of Staff as of last August. So the taxpayers have been getting a pretty good deal for my services for the last year or so. But anyway, I'm honored to be here this evening and humbled by the sight of so many of you here, collaborating with on your efforts and accomplishments in workforce development. This is incredibly important to the President and the Secretary, and it's an honor to be here today and support your efforts. As many of you know all too well, that work you do is vitally important to the American people. As your materials state, you are the last mile of the job creation program in this country. People rely on you for training after a layoff or a long hiatus from work. People rely on you for educational opportunities designed to help them succeed in today's labor market. People rely on you to help them find openings in a new field when they've never had any experience there before, or one in which if they've had difficulty finding meaningful employment. People who rely on you to help them achieve and thrive in their pursuit of the American dream. So to see so many of you here today working together, sharing best practices, trading war stories, talking about how to make America work again is an encouraging sight. I assure you that the Department of Labor is heartened by and supportive of all of your efforts. As you know, WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, brings together in strategic coordination the core programs of federal investment and skill development. It provides mechanisms for employment training services for adults, dislocated workers, and youth, and Wagner-Peiser employment services administered by the department through formula grants to states. From our perspective, it also authorizes programs for specific vulnerable populations, including out-of-school youth, Indian Native Americans, ex-offenders, and migrant and seasonal farm workers. That's a whole bunch of folks that everyone in this room has paid special attention to, and we appreciate that very much. WIOA provides many tools for local workforce development boards to chip away at the unemployment and underemployment that still persists, unfortunately, in the United States. But I don't have to tell you that much. You already know that, and you have a lot of experience with all of these programs. And you're finding innovative and creative solutions to help potential employees meet the needs of 21st century job creators. But how do you do that? By doing exactly what you've convened here to do, dialoguing about the changing labor market, discussing what real changes employers seek, and adjusting accordingly. By realistically identifying how you can craft programs designed to take WIOA from concept to execution, and doing that at the local level where you can pay attention to the needs of your local communities, you get people back to work. Back to work for companies like Google and Festo Didactic and Burning Glass Technologies, but also for those to find employment in the trades requiring modernized skills training, auto mechanics, electricians, and plumbers as well. You are the ones removing the barriers to those open job opportunities. In fact, the Secretary of Labor likes to discuss the fact that there are approximately, in any given month, 6 million job openings anywhere in this country and 6 million Americans looking for work. All we have to do is match up those people and everyone will have the full employment they should have. So tonight, I'm here to reassure you the department is 100% behind your efforts. Under WIOA, DOL will continue to provide grant funds and technical support for your work so that you can continue to offer these essential services and employment services to those walking through your doors every day. Within the boundaries of the laws provided by Congress, we have every intention of seeing you succeed and giving you every flexibility possible. We have been entrusted with prudent management of taxpayer money, as have you all, and our goal is to make sure that those monies are used soundly and consistently with the law. But finding the flexibility within the law is the biggest goal of the department and certainly Secretary Acosta in giving you all the resources and tools you need to perform your services. He's dedicated a great deal of his tenure to ensuring that all the tools are available and will be provided so that American workers can find the jobs they need. Everything. Not the proverbial hammer without nails, not the proverbial saw without blades. The whole assortment of tools necessary to achieve your goals within the boundaries of WIOA. So we're constantly seeking ways to implement the law flexibly and creatively, and we know you are doing the same. And if you have ideas, feel free to tell Ron and he'll forward them on to me. He's not shy. We realize that modernizing America's workforce is a fluid endeavor, one that requires us to adjust to meet ever-changing demand. Technology and innovation have changed the horizon even since WIOA was passed in 2016. In fact, we heard a lot about those changes and likely changes going forward from the prior panel. We understand that you are the ones that need to figure out where we are, where we're going, and how to get the needs met for those who need to get there. And you're assessing the skills. You're the ones providing training to minimize the divide between the skill employers need and those employees currently have. Educators, employers, elected officials who want to find creative solutions for matching our employers with qualified and skilled employees equipped with the training that they need. We share your enduring commitment to narrowing the skills gap and are working to find flexibility where we can. And we look forward to working with you to assess current labor market needs and to modernize accordingly. As my grandfather used to say, you need the right tools for the right job. So I appreciate the few moments to chat with you about DOL's commitment to you, but even more to express that we value and support the work you are doing every day on behalf of the American people. Closing the skills gap is the Secretary's top priority, and we are excited to see how you're all adjusting to meet the demands of today's labor market. As I mentioned, we need to find those 6 million American workers and put them in the 6 million open jobs that are currently out there. And I want to mention something else. The apprenticeship program is something that the President and the Secretary have dedicated themselves to, and I know that's a high priority to everyone in this room as well. So I want to thank you for your support of that program. Thank you for your time this evening. It's been an honor to be here, to hear a little bit about what's going on from the prior panel, and to see everyone here in this room and realize that all working together, we can help America's workers get back to work. Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for everything you do.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the Chair of the Awards Committee, NAWB Board Secretary Patricia Villalobos, and NAWB Board Vice Chair Andrew Bursich.
First, I want to thank and take a moment to thank the Chief of Staff, Geale, for taking the time to join us this evening. We appreciate your interest in the role of Workforce Board plays in the communities and your participation. Now for the awards program. Andrew?
Typically, we would start off this evening by immediately jumping in and starting to talk about some of the great work that that's happening at the local level with workforce boards, with employers, and the partnerships that we've developed. But there is most certainly another type of partnership that we want to celebrate here before we get started with those today. 3 of our board members are currently hitting the ends of their terms, and that means for the purposes of this conversation, they've been here a darn long time. Between the 3 of these gentlemen, they have over 45 years of board service to NAWB and NAPIC before it. They've been to Washington, D.C. countless numbers of times. They visited with countless numbers of representatives on the Hill. They've made introductions to important members of Congress in the Help Committee, the Appropriations Committee, within their states and in others. And we cannot thank them for the efforts that they've given over the course of the last upwards of 20 years. So I'd like to ask Eddie Estes, Tim Dempsey, and Bill Villano to join us on stage as we have a special presentation that we would like to extend to them for their time with us. These gentlemen have really exemplified everything that it means to be a NOB board member through dedication, through always being there when we need it. And if you think about the amount of time that you spend working on your local board, this takes probably at least as much, if not twice as much time, at least out of my day, as I think about the efforts that we put in here. So again, we can't thank them enough for all of their efforts, and we wish them luck with all the extra free time too. So. All right, now we'll get back to the heart of our award ceremony and start celebrating our winners.
Thank you. Okay. The winner of our 2018 WIOA Trailblazer Award is the San Diego Workforce Partnership in San Diego, California. Representing San Diego Workforce Partnership are its president and CEO, Peter Kostrom, and executive officer of Manpower West, the partnership's board chair, Phil Blair. At this time, as they come up to the stage, the San Diego Workforce Partnership serves more than 3 million residents in a county driven by innovation and expansion in the life sciences, technology, manufacturing, defense, and tourism industries. The partnership is being recognized for its unsurpassed leadership in bringing together key government, economic development, education, business, and industry, and nonprofit leaders in the neighboring workforce boards in regional planning. Though it's WIOA's consortium meetings, the San Diego Workforce Partnership further aligns the partners and engages them in key decision-making, driving significant changes to the ETPL policy and the AGCC operations and the youth contracting structure. The partnership actively coordinates in industry engagement, developing a single entry point for business customer. It is also exploring a streamlined approach to its business services that focuses on meeting the needs of business customer quickly and effectively through rapid employer assessment. The San Diego Workforce Partnership serves thousands of young people through WIOA-funded providers and locally funded Connect to Careers programs. Recognizing that not all the residents have equal opportunities to benefit from San Diego's dynamic economy, it targets the growing space between economic development and workforce equity. Ladies and gentlemen, accepting the 2018 WIOA Trailblazer Award on behalf of the San Diego Workforce Partnership are Peter Kostrom and Phil Blair.
Good evening, everybody. This is really a cool honor, and it's only possible when you have an amazing staff. As you probably saw, they were on about 147 panels in the last couple of days, but wonderful staff and amazing board that really works together so well in our region that's allowed us to go beyond where we ever imagined. But we have so much further to go, and we only feel semi-worthy of this award because of what we've learned from so many of you in the room. We've come to these conferences and we've picked up tips and tricks and ideas and concepts and taken them back home. So big credit to Ron and the NOB team for making that possible, because when we learn together, we get inspired and we find new trails. And that's what it's all about. We feel that this award is a journey. It's certainly not a destination. We don't feel we're there. We are inspired every day to do better, to learn more, to do better, to serve more people, and it's through you and your inspiration that makes that possible. So thank you very much for this wonderful award. Phil?
And for the private sector people that are out there in the audience, thank you for all you do and the time you give and volunteer, and tell your peers to get involved. It's really important that we talk to the workforce partnerships of America about the needs that we have for hiring and the jobs, as we heard about on the panel. So thank you for all you do, and stay involved and get your peers more involved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Feels like we were at the end of a basketball game.
Yes. Okay. Now for the W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award. The W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award honors businesses and business organizations that have made the commitment of time, money, and leadership to make their community's workforce and economy more vibrant. WIOA places the workforce needs of industries and employers at the center of the region's development, planning, and delivery. This is only possible, however, when a business steps up and makes a commitment to be a full partner in the board's endeavors, giving its time, resources, and leadership to make its community's workforce and economy more vibrant.
This year, NAWB honors both a business and a business organization. The first awardee is a small company with just 4 employees. The second awardee is a large business collaborative representing over 1,000 employees across multiple companies.
The winner of the 2018 W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award is the small business category is Samuel Garcia, State Farm Insurance in Abilene, Texas, which was nominated by Workforce Solutions of West Central Texas. As they come up to the stage, representing the company and our owner, agent Samuel Garcia, and Executive Director of Workforce Solutions of West Central Texas, Mary Ross. As they come to the stage, Samuel Garcia from State Farm Insurance knows that the importance of connecting business, education, and workforce. As a member of the Board of Workforce Solutions of West Central Texas, Samuel Garcia led the creation and launch of the Workforce Investment Fund designed to help small businesses train current workers. Through a short online application, employers could apply for up to $50,000 with a 25% cash match. The fund was active for 7 years, during which time it assisted businesses in training. 2008 current workers are creating 968 new jobs across 39 businesses in 9 counties. All jobs were paid at above the average weekly wage for that same occupation. When the fund was suspended due to legislative changes, the board's investment of $1.3 million had leveraged a $3.2 million cash match for employers, with an estimated economic impact of $50 million. Samuel was also instrumental in launching the Board's Career Pathways Initiative in 2007 by connecting business leaders with their local school district, bringing them onto high school campuses to share awareness of local career opportunities. He actively recruited other business owners and companies to participate. Over 2,000 students in grades 3 through 8 have been encouraged to consider STEM careers through the TAME Trailblazer, an initiative, an interactive science museum on wheels that primarily visit rural schools. 10 years later, the 2017 Regional World of Work Youth Expo brought together over 2,700 students from 51 schools representing 17 counties and 88 exhibitors. Ladies and gentlemen, accepting the 2018 W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award for Small Business on behalf of Samuel Garcia State Farm Insurance and Workforce Solutions of West Central Texas are Samuel Garcia and Mary Ross.
They told me I had 2 minutes, and I'm going to use my 2 minutes. First, of my 2 minutes, I'm going to promote my home city of Abilene, Texas. If you want to go to a great, friendly city, go to Abilene, Texas. It's about 2 miles west of Dallas-Fort Worth, straight down I-20. If you get there, give me a call. I'll take you to dinner over at La Familia Restaurant. It's a little restaurant. You'll eat some of the best Mexican food you'll ever find in the country, okay? I'll show you some of the great museums and art that we have in that city. So if I get a chance to promote my home city, I'm going to do it. So think of Abilene, Texas, the next time you're thinking of a place to visit in Texas. Now, when it comes to this award, first of all, I am very honored by this. When I was coming up, my son said, "Hey, Dad, are you going to take your tag off?" And I said, "No, I'm not taking my tag off. Let me tell you why. This tag is something that I wear like a badge of honor. Because when I think about this, I think about the team. The team that starts with Ron Painter, the National Workforce Board. The team that includes, at the state level, our TOB team with Greg Vaughn and those guys that are working at the TOB level. The team includes our great Commissioner for Business, Ruth Hughes, our Commissioner of the Public, Andres Alcantar, and our Commissioner of Labor, Julian Alvarez. Our team consists of our board, our volunteers like Tammy Reese, and then our staff like the most awesome executive director in the world, Mary Ross, our staff person like Robert Pools, and then our contractors like Selena Gomez, and then our volunteers like my fellow board member, Tammy Reese. And then I think about the work that they do every single day, the honorable work of finding careers for people to change their lives. I am very passionate about this stuff because it makes a difference in the lives of people. When you grow up the way I did, trust me, a job and a career can not only changes a person, it changes a family, it changes a community, and that's the work that you do, and I honor you with this. There's a little saying that I stole from a gentleman by the name of Greg Newton, who, keep him in your prayers, he's not doing well right now, but he came to our board one time and he said, "You guys on the board, you get to eat the dessert. Your staff gets to eat the vegetables." Well, the folks that eat the vegetables, they're the most important people in the world. I enjoy my cheesecake, and I get to do these kind of things. They make me look good, and I say thank you for that. Thank you.
The winner of the 2018 W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award in the large business category is Build My Future Collaborative, nominated by the Ozark Region's Workforce Development Board. Representing the Build My Future Collaborative is the CEO of the Home Builders Association of Greater Springfield, Charlize Ruth, and accompanying her is the Director of Workforce Development for the City of Springfield, Marianne Rojas. As they come up to the stage, let me tell you about why they Build My Future Collaborative was named as the winner. The collaborative is comprised of local labor's council, the Home Builders Association, the Springfield Chamber of Commerce, and various employers. It supports the Ozark Workforce Development Board through financial and in-kind contributions that fund pre-apprenticeship academies to prepare individuals for jobs in the trades. The collaborative also led the establishment of the Build My Future Expo that hosted over 1,000 students, 200 business volunteers, area school districts, and universities to highlight good jobs in the construction trades, expose students to potential opportunities in the industry, and create strong ties with businesses in the region. The collaborative has launched other initiatives, including the Good Job Committee, consisting of parents and employers that come together to discuss workforce preparedness for their children and provide information regarding access to job center and community resources. The Youth Roundtable brings students and employers together to learn about each other's expectations in the world of work. This model has resulted in the implementation of other industry roundtables in healthcare, IT, and manufacturing. Results of their other roundtables include additional funding in the amount of $3.2 million in support of training for high-demand occupations in the Ozarks. Ladies and gentlemen, accepting the 2018 W.O. Lawton Business Leadership Award for Large Business on behalf of Build My Future Collaborative are Charlize Ruth and Marianne Rojas.
Very honored to accept this award on behalf of the Build My Future collaborative effort. This entire process started with an idea at a round table and it has grown to something very, very large. The Home Builders Association is very pleased to be a part of this, and we have so enjoyed working with our workforce board, the unions, private industry, nonprofits, governmental industries. Working together, we have instituted great change, and we're looking forward to how this progresses. In just one short year, we've doubled the number of students that are attending and tripled our floor space of exhibits. So we'd love to visit with you about this if it's something like you would like to duplicate in your community. But again, thank you so much on behalf of the Build My Future collaborative effort. I have to take a deep breath for this one. But first, I'd like to recognize this is our first year
of the National Association of Workforce Board honors the memory of Lori Moran. A true advocate and friend, Lori Moran served on the West Piedmont Workforce Investment Board from 2001 to 2016 and was president of the Danville, Pennsylvania County Chamber of Commerce from 2002 until her passing. I'd like to note that we have her husband, Bruce, her two sons, Jeffrey and Austin, please stand, and her dear friend, Julie. She was a member of the board of NOB from 2004 to 2015, serving as chair from 2011 to 2013. Lori, who was much loved by both board members and staff of NOB, passed away in June 2017, leaving a hole in the workforce development community, as well as in the communities of Danville and Pennsylvania County. Lori's professional life bridged the world of business and workforce and focused on helping individuals seeking to advance their skills, their families, and their communities. Lori's success stemmed from her deep sense of responsibility for the condition of her community, her high degree of integrity, and the empathy she felt for all of her community residents. Lori built trust among organizations and trust among individuals, providing opportunities for her community's residents and businesses to participate in building their economy. On top of this trust, she added diligence in promoting what works, courage, and determination to change what didn't, and humility to listen and learn. In memory of who Lori was and what she accomplished, NOB has established the Lori Moran Partnership Award. This award is given jointly to a workforce development board and a chamber of commerce that have formed a significant partnership to advance the workforce and economic development of their local region, demonstrating a commitment to leadership and partnership for the good of their communities. We want to acknowledge that here with us, well, I got ahead of myself, so. And now the recipients of this award, as they make their way up to the stage. The winners of the 2018 Lori Moran Partnership Award, our South Central Tennessee Workforce Alliance and Maury County Chamber of Commerce, Chamber and Economic Alliance. Representing these organizations are the president of the South Central Tennessee Workforce Alliance, Jan McKeel, and president of the Maury County Chamber and Economic Alliance, Will Evans. As they come up to the stage, let me tell you about their award-winning accomplishments. Although separate entities in the South Central Tennessee Workforce Board and Maury Alliance, the Chamber of Commerce for the county, have been close and strategic partners since both organizations began in the early 2000s. Shared board and committee membership, including members of the private and public sector, has paved the way for common mission and goals. Ensuring the region produces a world-class workforce capable of meeting the needs of existing business and industry and exceeding the expectations of new industry. The partnership has made tremendous strides in aligning education with workforce needs through streamlining the pathway to post-secondary training. The two organizations partnered to create the Northfield Workforce Development and Conference Center, a project started in recessionary 2009 under the direction of the SCTWA. The project involved the acquisition of the former GM Saturn corporate offices, a 300,000 plus square foot facility. It now houses both private sector lease-paying tenants and public sector training institutions with the goals of job creation and increased training opportunities aligned with immediate employer needs. Together, the organizations have created a new career training program to meet employer needs, resulting in a 200% increase in dual-enrolled high school students and a 100% increase in graduates with an AAS or diploma in these fields. These programs, along with the summer camps to introduce 200 middle and high school students to careers in manufacturing technology and information technology annually, are housed locally at the Northfield Development and Conference Center. SCTWA and Murray Alliance also partnered to recruit new businesses to their area, landing the first U.S. location for the premier Italian ceramic tile manufacturer, Gruppo Concord, Landmark Ceramics, with an $80 million capital investment and 180 employees. Accepting the award on behalf of their organizations are Jan McKeel and Will Evans.
Thank you. First of all, I'm surprised that you've got Jan and I up here agreed to be on the same stage, because when it really comes down to it, we just can't stand each other. But no, Jan is a professional partner, a true friend, and a mentor of mine, so it is a very big honor for me to be up here. On behalf of the Murray County Chamber and Economic Alliance, I want to thank the NAWB Board and the Selection Committee for this great award. It's an honor to receive this inaugural Lori Moran Award in memory of such a great individual alongside such a great organization. I also want to thank Jan for insisting that we apply for this award. The support and partnership of your organization and your board is invaluable to what we've been able to do for our community, so thank you.
On behalf of the Workforce Board and our staff, and of course our elected officials, we want to thank all of you for such an incredible honor to be the first recipient of an award that honors Lori, and her lifetime of commitment to building partnerships just makes it all the more special. Of course, partnerships are the very cornerstone of what we do. So again, we're honored and humbled to be a winner of this award tonight. Thank you.
Okay. We want to congratulate all of our award winners, as well as all of the award nominees who are listed in our program book. We encourage you to nominate entries for next year. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage NAWB board member Geale Dada.
I get the toughest job today, I think. Thank you all for being here. Bruce, Austin, Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot to all of us that you were here today with us, and Julie as well, so thank you. Lori and I came on this board the same day together, and we became a team. We worked closely together. She was like a sister. We both had our health challenges, and we were a support group for each other. And here we are. She was a tireless, selfless advocate, not just for NAWB, but for the system as a whole. She was a convener, a collaborator, a connector. She could frame a conversation, mobilize resources, and make all of the rest of the board feel like we were accomplishing something great, when in reality, it was her that was doing everything. That was how she was. And when she walked into a room, she always commanded attention, not only because Bill Villano used to make fun of her accent, her southern accent that we all loved so much, but because she was just always really calm and gentle, and she made everybody comfortable, not in a way that a dictator or iron-fisted person would do, but she had this aura that she did. During board meetings, when members disagreed, as we all do sometimes, she always brought everyone together. She built consensus and made sure that everything was working. She really was, to many of the members, she was like a sister, but to Nob, she was really, we thought of her as the mom, the mother of NAWB. I watched her working, as did our other board members, with employers, with job seekers. We saw her with business leaders, with members of Congress, with administration officials. She was always so smooth. She was a total diplomat. And yes, she left us too soon, but I don't know if you can tell, but I try to carry her with me sometimes, and there she's flexing her muscles. And even though she's not physically here, she will always be a part of this forum, especially now because of this award. So thank you all for being here. God bless her and the family, and thank you again, everybody, and thanks for being here. So Lori was, as I said earlier, a tireless, selfless advocate, but she was also an optimist. She was funny, she would laugh, she would make us laugh. And the Capitol steps were one of her favorite things at the forum. When we came to the forum, she was always talking about the Capitol steps. Monday night, we got to go to the Capitol steps. So we're transitioning from a solemn moment over to have some fun. Let's make fun of the crazy people in Washington, D.C. This is what Lori would have wanted us to do. So for Lori, let's have some fun tonight. So the Capitol steps, as you know, they've been featured on the Today Show, Nightline, Good Morning America. They've been on basically every network show. And these are former staffers that have been doing this for 35 years, and they've been with us at NOB for as far as I've been coming here. So let's get ready for the Capitol steps. Thank you, everybody.